Just days after Andy Cowell was sacked as Aston Martin team principal, the huge news broke that Adrian Newey would be taking his place. The move is part of a big restructuring in Aston Martin's senior leadership and came as a surprise to fans. Why give Adrian other responsibilities when his best place is at a drawing board, making magic happen in the design department? Well, the decision has been made, and Adrian will be the man sitting in the director's seat on the pit wall next season, calling the shots for Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll. That is probably good news for the Aston Martin team, but there is some bad news coming out of the factory, and Fernando Alonso might be about to relive the legendary GP2 Engine rant. Today, I'll check it all out, so don't go anywhere. So the big news this week is that Andy Cowell is gone as Aston Martin team principal and is replaced by Adrian Newey. After just over a year in the job, Cowell was removed from his role due to disagreements with Newey over the running of the team and the design of the 2026 car. Lawrence Stroll was said to have approached former McLaren team principal Andreas Seidel, current head of the Audi F1 project Mattia Binotto, and Aston Martin's former CEO Martin Whitmarsh. Whitmarsh, who was replaced by Cowell last year, was offered his old job back and is said to have refused. Whitmarsh told BBC Sport, "I decided to leave Aston Martin in 2023, and whilst Lawrence has been very generous, I no longer wanted a role in the team." The big name that came up in discussions about Cowell's replacement was Christian Horner. While Horner was many people's favourite, and will remain the favourite for probably every team principal job that comes up until he gets a new role, he was never going to move to Aston Martin. After the falling out Horner and Newey had at Red Bull, which led to Newey leaving the team, the odds of the two working together again was already slim. On top of that, Horner would have been at the whims of Newey, flipping the roles they had at Red Bull, and that isn't something that Horner would want. He wants to be the top dog at whatever team he goes to, and has no one to answer to. He doesn't want to be answering to the guy who started the ball rolling on his eventual sacking. The name no one was expecting to replace Cowell was Adrian Newey. Newey started work at Aston Martin in March after his exit from Red Bull last year. His current role is as managing technical partner, and he joined on a 5-year deal in which he could earn up to £30 million a year, including bonuses and add-ons. Cowell, meanwhile, is to become Chief Strategy Officer, with particular focus on the team's engine partnership with Honda and their fuel suppliers. An Aston Martin statement said the move would allow Newey and Cowell to focus on their individual strengths and expertise, ensuring organisational efficiency. That is polite corporate talk for just wanting Cowell out of the way. The statement added that Newey would be guiding the technical team, including the trackside operations of the car. The move has come about through the realisation that Newey's expertise and long experience, having won 12 Drivers' Championships and 13 Constructors' Championships with Williams, McLaren and Red Bull, make him the de facto authority in the team. It should also be noted that Newey's abilities have always stretched beyond just designing the cars. He worked for a long time as a race engineer for a number of drivers in the American kart series before he joined F1. In fact, if you read his autobiography, How to Build a Car, you'll realise that in those early years in F1, when the teams were far smaller, Newey turned his hand to a huge variety of tasks within the F1 teams he worked for. Newey will be Aston Martin's 4th team principal in 4 years, following up Mars Safnauer, Mike Crack and Cowell. Hopefully though, as a shareholder within the team, he'll hold the job a little longer than the previous 3. Team owner Lawrence Stroll said in a statement, "Andy Cowell has been a great leader this year. He's focused on building a world-class team and getting them to work well together, as well as fostering a culture that puts the race car back at the heart of what we do. This leadership change is a mutual decision we've reached in the interest of the team. We all look forward to continuing working with him in his new capacity." Stroll added that Newey's new position would enable him to make full use of his creative and technical expertise. Sources at the team say Horner, who is free to work for another team from next summer after being sacked by Red Bull in July, will not be given a role at Aston Martin, putting an end to that rumour mill. However, Newey is said to have given his former Red Bull colleague a tour of the Aston Martin factory under cover of darkness on Tuesday night. Speaking after being given his new role, Newey said, "Over the last 9 months, I've seen great individual talent within our team. I'm looking forward to taking on this additional role as we put ourselves in the best possible position to compete in 2026, where we'll face an entirely new position with Aston Martin, now a works team, combined with a considerable challenge faced by the new regulations." Next season will be more than a considerable challenge. Building a car for the 2026 season could be the biggest challenge of Adrian's career, and like I said earlier, the news from within the Aston Martin factory won't make Fernando Alonso happy. Before I talk about that though, if you want to keep up to date with everything happening in Formula 1, then make sure to press the like button and subscribe to F1 Reverse. Thanks a lot. It was a little over a decade ago now that Fernando Alonso came out with one of the most recognizable quotes in Formula 1. In 2015, the second season of the turbo hybrid era, Alonso had returned to McLaren for his second stint at the team in the hopes of returning to the top of the sport. This was a time before the introduction of the cost cap and development restrictions, and Mercedes were dominating the sport thanks to their vastly superior engine. Honda, on the other hand, were struggling. They'd returned to Formula 1 that year for the first time since the financial crisis in 2008 forced them to sell their team to Ross Brawn for £1. They were the engine supplier for McLaren that year, and it was not a pretty marriage. McLaren were abysmally slow all season, something that infuriated Fernando Alonso. At Honda's home race at the Japanese Grand Prix, Alonso was furious over the team radio, constantly calling the engine a GP2 engine over the team radio. GP2 was the name of the F2 series of the time, and Alonso spent most of the race ranting about the embarrassing engine, which left him powerless to battle against his opponents. 11 years on, and the team radio highlights from that race are still iconic. Next season, Alonso will team up with Honda again, with a Japanese manufacturer exclusively building engines for Aston Martin from 2026 onwards. With budget caps, testing restrictions, and catch-up rules in place, there shouldn't be any risk of a repeat of the 2015 pain that Alonso had to suffer through. But according to the team's simulator driver Jack Crawford, Alonso might not enjoy next season. Many drivers were critical of their 2026 cars after testing them in a simulator. Speed has been the main problem, and the latest comments about the new rules are even more damning. Racing Bulls driver Isaac Hadjar suggested in Las Vegas that the 2026 F1 cars are closer to an F2 car, but he clarified that he meant car performance-wise. Aston Martin reserve driver Crawford echoed these feelings. He claimed that the new car was quite similar to Drive to F2 after being in the simulator. The American was not talking about pace specifically, and his and Hadjar's comments could simply be interpreted as the 2026 cars are slower than the current generation. However, he could have also implied that they are in fact closer to F2 cars, which will worry Alonso. Hadjar and Crawford's F2 comments are the latest criticism of the 2026 regulations, but Nicholas Tombazis has denied this claim is true. The FIA chief says, "Comments about F2 pace are way off the mark. We're talking about lap times overall, which are in the region of 1 or 2 seconds off where we are now, depending on the track, depending on the conditions," he said. Obviously, at the start of the cycle, it would be silly to be faster than the previous cycle. It would cost us nothing from a regulation point of view. It would be very easy to make the cars go faster, but one has to gradually claw back what is gained by natural development. So you can't start the cycle going faster than the previous one. Then in 20 years from now, you can imagine what would happen. So it's natural the cars are a bit slower, but I don't think we are anywhere near the "it's not Formula 1" discussion in any way or shape. What do you think of the comments about the new cars being as slow as F2 cars? Do you trust Tombazis or the drivers who have driven the cars in the simulator? And what do you think of Newey heading up Aston Martin? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and until next time, drive safe and bye for now.